Welcome to the Westmonster News Podcast, your alternative to the mainstream media.
Well, we're on the other side of Super Saturday. I hope everyone had an enjoyable day out, back out in the boozers. Martin, how was yours, mate?
Absolutely fabulous. I went to the pub twice on Saturday, once with the lads, and then I had the courtesy to double back and get her indoors. And do you know what? It was marvellous out there. My local pub, the bar staff are friends, the landlord are friends, the locals are all friends. It was great to see them. It felt like reuniting with an extended family. No trouble whatsoever. Great social distancing, sensible, safe, supping. And guess what, Michael? The Armageddon that the media predicted of A&E being like a Somme battle hospital, rolling arrests, fights, none of it happened. Yeah, there are a few meatheads in Soho, case after all, but I think on the whole, Michael, a huge success.
Yeah, I mean, I could not believe, or maybe I could, sadly, that the media coverage on the Friday and even the Saturday morning, I mean, it was just miserable.
Yeah.
Oh, what could happen? What might happen? Isn't this all terrible? Isn't it most of the... Look, people need to go out and live their lives and have some enjoyment. People have been through a lot in the past few months. People will have known people that have got seriously ill. They may have got ill themselves. But even if they didn't, that feeling of isolation, of their life being turned upside down, of not being able to have the normal routine. And I just thought, the pub's open. Isn't this something great? People can get that sense of normality. And as you say, a lot of the media coverage was just... predicting some sort of Armageddon. I went out, made up for lost time, of course, with some watered down lager, as per normal. But there were lots of happy people. Where I was, it was not absolutely Ramo. It was moderate, but it was, the people behind working in the boozers were very happy to see people back out. So I think it was a great day, Martin. And as you say, it's just another example of how some people seem to be determined to be miserable.
I think it's a bit more than that. And this is something we talk about a lot on the Westmonster News podcast. And I think it's a growing disconnect between the media elite and the regular guy and girl in the street. There's this feeling of, if you want to go for a drink, you are anti-NHS, you're anti-Britain. It's just ridiculous. The media almost wanted Brexit to fail. They wanted the government to fail during the COVID lockdown. And now what? Well, they want the pub and hospitality businesses to fail. And, 3 pubs out of 50,000 have closed since the lockdown because they effectively tracked and traced their punters. I think a great example, actually, of how macro detail can work in individual businesses. And I think the media got it completely wrong. But look, the pub industry deserves some help. And Michael, that brings us to our first story today.
Well, before we go there, I just want to thank Charlie, because Charlie gave us a banging little review on the podcast. And he said, to see you back, well, and raring to go has been the highlight of my week. Keep up the good work, guys. And guys, we launched the Westmonster Club recently. I think there was some confusion over what it was. I'm just going to clarify that now. All it is, it's our Patreon page for you can support this show to get all future episodes of the show. Me and Martin are going to be doing another episode early next week. That's only going to be available in full to those of you who are willing to stick a tenner in. That's how much we've simplified it to access all future episodes of the show. You can go to westmonster.club. If, like Charlie, you absolutely love the show, show us some support, and that's how you can access all future episodes. If you just type in westmonster.club, that takes you to our Patreon, as I say. We're going to be doing lots of other exclusive articles on there, exclusive episodes of the show. So type in westmonster.club, stick a tenner in, back us, and show your support. But yeah, no, before we get to the half-price meals, I just want to... One of the things that's been... one of the things I've been bouncing off the walls on is the gyms, as you know, Martin. And we hear today, just shortly before we started recording, that Bojo could today give gyms the go-ahead to reopen within days. And that, again, not just in terms of people's physical health, Martin, but in terms of their mental health is another very positive step and something we should welcome.
Yeah, we've all been doing outdoors exercise, or me and my family were doing the Joe Wicks workout. And I love the guy to bits, but I'm bored of the sight of him, and I'm bored of the music he plays. And in the end, I more or less felt like jumping out the window. But look, he helped. The point is, this is about returning to normality. And yeah, gyms have been seen as a high risk area because there's lots of surfaces to touch. You're obviously breathing heavily. It's generally a warm environment, but we've got to get everything ticking back to normal soon. We cannot mothball the economy forever, and we surely must strive forwards. And it's just great sort of scenes of us getting back to a normal life, Michael.
Yeah, so Rishi Sunak yesterday, the Chancellor, with a number of announcements. We'll just go through them quickly. The first one being this eat out to help out. Now, I'm always very happy to eat if it helps out. I love stuff in my face. But this scheme to provide 50% off up to a maximum of £10 per head. And I think that's Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday during August. That's one of the announcements. They're also bringing in a new scheme that's going to cost up to £9 billion. The idea being to give companies £1,000 for each employee they take back from being furloughed. And then finally, VAT to be slashed on food, accommodation and attractions. I mean, that's obviously, this is all a lot of it geared towards the hospitality industry, Martin. And I think, the government, they're investing large amounts of money to try and make sure that there isn't the sort of feared collapse as soon as the furlough scheme ends.
Yeah, they're keen at Tory HQ to make out this isn't a fiscal moment. It's not an actual budget, but it obviously is pumping 30 billion bottom line into the economy. And there's a few things to pick up. First of all, the meals. It's been ridiculed, as you'd expect, on social media as meerkat meals. Because, compare the supermarket already do vouchers for half-price meals in the week. It's like people complain about half-price food. What's wrong with them? Well, give me some more half-price food. That's a great thing. And more to the point, these are vouchers. They're going to be spent in beleaguered pubs and beleaguered restaurants. It's about getting people back out there into businesses to put their hands in their pockets with a little bit of help from the government. And I saw that Rishi himself went over to Wagamama's and was serving some food to punters. I think it was a clever little press moment. Dishy Rishi serving a fishy dishy. Sorry, Michael, it's a bit of a mouthful. That's my old tabloid DNA coming out. But I think it's a proactive move and a great idea to slash VAT. I've got friends, I know you have too, who run pubs and bars and restaurants, and they're over the moon about this. It straight away gives them the opportunity to cut their bottom line by 15%, which means they're much more likely to retain staff, to employ new staff, to invest. I would have liked to have seen it extended a bit longer, but the job retention scheme, I think, it is a brilliant piece of policy. In fact, it's very like the reverse furlough scheme, which our colleague Ben Habib mentioned, because the fear, of course, was come the end of the furlough scheme, companies would just lay off all of the staff that have been furloughed. So effectively, the government has been paying for staff that aren't needed. So a direct £1,000 per employee incentive to take them back on, I think, is a really clever piece of policy, and it's great for building forwards, Michael.
Yeah, and again, it struck me that, well, there's a couple of things here. Firstly, the fear is that when the furlough scheme ends, there'll be a wave of redundancy / sackings. Yeah. So the government cannot simply sit there and wait for that to happen. They've got to mitigate as best they can. And you've got to remember, and we've talked about this before, the Conservative Party now have won a lot of seats for the first time ever in that so-called red wall. They're trying to show people that they're actually willing to look beyond London, to recognise that there are areas of the country that are nowhere near as economically well off. And to do that, they're having to show that they're willing to invest in the economy and in the British people. And the other side of that, of course, and I've said this before, is that there's no such thing as free money. I mean, the jobs retention bonus alone will cost the government up to 9.4 billion. The VAT cut is going to cost 4.1 billion. The stamp duty cut an extra 3.8 billion, and the eating out discount scheme 500 million. John O'Connell, chief exec of the Taxpayers Alliance, said while the jobs retention bonus will help ensure that the furlough scheme isn't just an expensive pause on mass layoffs, taxpayers will be concerned about how and when they will pay the bills for ever more spending promises. And that is something to bear in mind with all this. At some point, this has to be paid for. And, the government, I think, broadly, the public will see that they're doing what they can. But there is going to come a point where people are going to say, how's this being paid for? And, when we look at something like foreign aid, where we're still giving 14 billion a year away, when we look at HS2, which is just going to cost ridiculous amounts of money, surely we also need to see some big cuts in areas like that.
And don't forget, Michael, the £1 billion per month will no longer be sending to Brussels. Surely this is a great moment to acknowledge that money in the back pocket, money on the table for Britain, and not money that was sending over to the trough in Brussels and Strasbourg. That's, I think, a really key point. But this is about being nimble. It's about being able to change things on the hoof for Britain. And let's not forget that changing VAT and supporting our own state industries is verboten in Brussels. These are more examples, I think, of how we should be nimble, moving forward and Britain-centric. But we can't just sit on our feet. We can't just sit there and let the worst happen. We have to spend some money. And there are two things I think are important. First of all, we do need to borrow more money. I mentioned Ben Habib earlier. I've been speaking with him a lot about this because he is an absolute encyclopedia of how this all meshes together. And even he is saying he's very prudent financially. Normally, he is saying interest rates are at record lows. They're very, very unlikely to go up anytime soon because it would just fracture the economy in terms of people's ability to repay mortgages and their credit debts. And so now is a good time to borrow. And secondly, there is firm evidence. For example, if you slash VAT, if you remove barriers to people spending money, then the tax take will be higher because people will be spending more. There'll be more money coming back into the economy. But Michael, it's bold moves, and I think I'm very supportive. I think Rishi is a rising star, and at the moment he's the golden boy of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, and it was interesting again to see him just out there serving food yesterday. Even that was getting criticised by some people. What's he doing? And I think, honestly, something I'm doing more and more is I'm tuning out to a lot of the social media stuff. I'm sort of limiting what in terms of the amount of time I'm on there. And obviously, guys, I recommend that because right now I don't know if it's lockdown or what it is, but some people have just lost their marbles. They want to criticise absolutely everything. They're miserable, and I honestly can recommend exercise and, of course, listening to this podcast to perk yourself up. Now, when it comes to the people spending money, the BBC, Martin, and an interesting development because Conservative MP Ben Bradley breaking ranks and pledging to cancel his TV license. He's tweeted up BBC spending 100 million on diversity and this junk, which honestly is racist, would not be acceptable the other way around, whilst at the same time ditching regional news in order to save 25 million. Wrong, absolute joke, cancelling my TV license. I don't need to pay for this. And of course, the clip that he's referring to, Martin, a ridiculous, a tweet entitled, "How can white women not be Karens?" This is the BBC output we get now.
Yeah, so for those who are mercifully fortunate not to know what a Karen is a kind of internet meme, a term that's been conjured up for white women who complain about everything. It's been used widely in America, mainly for these university-educated privileged, the types that just moan about
snobs.
Snobs. And they're the sort of people that would moan about getting half-price food. They're the sort of people that would moan about being their food being served by the Chancellor of the Exchequer because he's not wearing PPE. These people are the worst of the internet generation, and the BBC are not only celebrating them, saying, why aren't all white women Karens, i.e., every white woman should complain about racism, complain about systemic oppression, and use their whiteness to be something of a badge of shame. And this was ridiculed. In fact, it was ridiculed by those from the left, those from the right. The feminist community jumped on this. It completely backfired. So, well, why should I be a part of, why should I use my whiteness to complain about these things? It's tying itself in knots. Identity politics is kryptonite. And what's been interesting about this is that the defund the BBC movement has now moved from some kind of gaggle of, well, the way it's portrayed is a gaggle of extremists, Brexiteers, fascists, racists, the most toxic elements of Tinternet, which of course it never was, but that's the way it was smeared. And now, with people like Ben Bradley, Tory for Mansfield, a good friend of this show, a pal of mine, straight talking white working class bloke saying, enough of this crap, to be frank. And this, Michael, is starting to really gather momentum. The BBC deleted the tweet and they've removed it. So I think that this is signs of common sense finally breaking through.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm more pessimistic than that, Martin. I just think that the entire culture of the BBC, I think it's actually entrenching now, and this output seems to be getting worse and worse, not better. That's why we're seeing now so many alternative media now emerging, podcasts and shows like the Westmonster News podcast, Martin, because people are looking for an alternative, aren't they? They want something that's relevant, that speaks to the concerns and issues that they're actually interested in, instead of this endless garbage identity politics that about 0.01% of the population cares about, and yet it seems to be promoted time and time again in the media. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, actually, I'm with you. I'm not optimistic about the BBC. I was just trying to be. I've had a nice cup of coffee, but I think it comes down to this, and it's, you know, if we're all looking at how we spend our money, you know, and we're going to be spending our money more carefully post-lockdown, we're going to be looking to spend our money in ways that makes us feel good about ourselves, aren't we? And if we're spending money on a BBC licence fee that continually tells us we must self-flagellate for our whiteness, we must focus on only the bad things that Britain has done, colonialism, the empire, all of British history boils down to oppression and it boils down to exploitation, then that makes me feel bad about myself. And I don't want to spend my money feeling bad about myself. No, I'm not saying let's airbrush all the bad bits out of history. I'm not saying let's sugarcoat everything. But I am saying give us a bloody break. And people want to feel good. And they don't want to listen to the BBC and to be told continually that they are part of a problem, when many times, like myself, I come from a very humble working class background, Michael. So do you. Where did my white privilege start? I don't remember the precise moment it kicked in. It's nonsense. It's divisive. And more to the point, we've got to pay for it. And many, many people now, they're voting with their wallets and they're opting out.
And of course, remember, you can opt into Westmonster.club if you want to support the Westmonster News. No, but seriously, new media needs support. You know, we don't have a license fee like the BBC. And of course, you can support us on Patreon at Westmonster.club for exclusive shows moving forward. Now, I want to talk about an issue, and we've discussed it before, that doesn't seem to get much mainstream media attention. But Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet has written a piece for Westmonster.com today, basically saying that they estimate, Migration Watch UK, that the number of people arriving illegally through the channel is on course to reach at least 7,500 people in 2020. That would mean 5,000 more people arriving illegally from safe countries by Christmas. And he sets out some ideas as to what needs to be done about this. Number one, get the French to agree to the immediate return of all those detected attempting to cross the channel illegally from France. Provide a major boost in funding for UK immigration enforcement and substantially increase the number of removals of those with no right to be here. Now, you know, Martin, it just goes on and on. The number of boats coming over, people risking their lives, obviously traffickers making a lot of money out of this. It seems to be getting another issue where it seems to be actually getting worse, not better. And, we do have a Home Secretary, Priti Patel, who does have public backing, who does say the right things. But the problem of illegal immigration into Britain is one that needs dealing with. And it needs dealing with a major shift in policy to start to make it very clear that those who attempt to enter this country illegally will not be able to stay.
2 points here, Michael. First of all, isn't this funny how Britain is continually portrayed as oppressive, racist, totalitarian, a fascist regime, and yet record numbers of people are fighting illegally to find their way into Britain. So that's that one dealt for starters. We're obviously a very desirable place to be over all of those European countries that these people have travelled through, because we are the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in terms of benefits, in terms of housing, in terms of the likelihood of being deported, the likelihood of being sent back, and the likelihood of finding a fruitful and prosperous life. Britain is not an oppressive regime. It's clearly somewhere where thousands of people are risking their lives. And let's not even talk about the grotesque industry of human trafficking that exploits these people to get them in. We're going to save £1 billion a month from EU membership and aligning with controlling illegal entries into Britain, also protecting our hopefully massively reinvigorated fishing industry. We need to seriously beef up coastal security in terms of vessels and technology and entry point security. All of that can be done with the right planning, with the right wherewithal, and with the right reallocation of resources to make sure Britain is safe and prosperous. And of course, we should always be mindful that those who are in genuine need of asylum, we can look at those on a case-by-case basis. But the very idea that our borders are porous and people are flocking into beaches and we should just benignly accept that, I think goes against our democratic nation. It certainly goes against the will of Brexiteers and those who voted Boris Johnson's government in by a huge majority, because immigration was central then. So, Michael, we've got to keep highlighting this, and that's what we're going to do on this show.
Absolutely. Another thing we're going to highlight is our wonderful, special relationship with America, a country I absolutely love. And some really interesting polling from YouGov in America, Martin. Basically, it shows that 81% of those asked in America either view the UK as an ally or a friendly nation. And very interestingly, American opinion of China now, 65% of Americans now view China as an enemy or unfriendly. 32% of US citizens asked now consider China to be an outright enemy of the USA. So a big ally for us, but actually in terms of America's outlook, and obviously you've got the US presidential election fast approaching now, that does say a lot. I mean, the number of Americans viewing China now as an enemy is increasing, while 81% view the UK as a friendly nation.
There are lots of ways of looking at this. First of all, it's surely proof that the special relationship between the UK and the USA is very much alive and kicking, despite, again, what the pro-Palestine hard-left Muppets would have us believe, that this is some sort of toxic, capitalistic, nefarious, evil web of control. No, it's not. It's about a recognition of history. It's a recognition of common bonds, and we should be building stronger and more powerful allegiances with the USA. In this poll, we come only second in terms of our friendliness to Canada, which of course is an immediate neighbour. They share a land border. We are second only to that. And also, I think there's a second point. Post-COVID-19, well, I mean, will there ever be a post-COVID-19? I think we're going to have to learn to live with this. I don't see us getting a virus, an antidote anytime soon. But certainly in terms of trade opportunities, I think we should healthily be looking finally to lowering our ties, lowering our dependence on China. Certainly the 5G developments have been very interesting, Michael. That's a whole separate conversation. Chinese technology comes with strings attached. I think we've woken up to that. And we should be looking at less dependence on China, more bonds with the USA. And I think that's a great place to be. And in a post-Brexit landscape, it gives us a great opportunity to forge new trade deals with our closest partners who clearly, Michael, unlike the BBC, unlike the hard left, unlike Black Lives Matter, they actually like us in America.
Well, it struck me again that the little Europeans, the hardline, inward-looking Remainers, what's left of them, it's another issue where they're just determined to be miserable. Because if you remember, the first thing that they used to say, oh, you won't get any global trade deals anyway. And then when you had the US president Donald Trump say, no, actually, we want to do a big, beautiful deal with the UK, then all of a sudden the deals that were on offer weren't good enough for them and they weren't interested. It's another example of there being massive global opportunities out there for us. And don't listen to the doubters. Don't listen to the people who have nothing optimistic to say whatsoever. The fact is that leaving the European Union allows us now to actually go ahead and forge global trade deals that benefit us as a nation. And also, we look now at who we're nominating as the country to head the WTO. It's Liam Fox, a Brexiteer, is being nominated from the UK to be Director General of the World Trade Organization. Liz Truss saying we need a fierce champion of free and fair trade, an advocate of multilateralism, and someone able to get things done. Liam brings all that to the table. Finally, Martin, we're actually starting to see Brexiteers, people that actually believe that it was right to leave the European Union and campaign for it, actually being put forward for roles at the top level. About time, isn't it?
Yeah, Foxy to the WTO, our good friend Frosty the No Man in charge of the civil service. So overseas and on home shores, finally, we seem to be getting people into these top roles that represent the majority, those who voted Brexit. And Michael, I know it's uncharitable to focus on those who lost, who got the wooden spoon, but I'm sorry. Peter Mandelson, you didn't get this job. I'm so happy about that. How is this guy even hovering around the corridors of power, along with those people from the same era, the Majors, the Blairs, the Heseltines, these naysayers, these doom mongers, these ermine-clad snakes? Michael, we need fresh momentum, fresh trade deals, fresh ways of thinking. We live in concerning times, but I'm feeling optimistic about Rishi's budget, about these WTO appointments, about our trade deals with America. And, we're always glass half full on this show, Michael. And that's not because we're blindly optimistic. It's because we just believe in Britain.
Absolutely. And guys, as I said, thanks so much to you that have joined the Westmonster Club already. As I said, it's our Patreon. It's a tenner a month. The next show that me and Martin are doing early next week, you'll only be able to hear in full on there. So I implore you, go back us, go to westmonster.club. That's our Patreon. Join, back us. This podcast has been rattling on up the charts thanks to your brilliant support. So don't forget to subscribe. Keep the reviews coming. Have a lovely day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Very best of British.